Vaughn, Canadian ministers are coming to D.C. This is going to secure some relief from the U.S. tariffs, but this is so volatile right now.
Right. In the extent to which relief is coming as a result of this meeting is even questionable at that. We believe, according to Premier Doug Ford, that the steel and aluminum tariffs are set to remain at just 25%, not double to 50%, as President Trump had repeatedly indicated. But as part of this effective stand down, at least on that front, they agreed to have this meeting here in Washington, D.C. with Commerce Secretary tomorrow. Now, notably, this does not include Prime Minister Mark Carney. This is instead including the finance minister, as well as Premier Doug Ford and other Canadian officials. And they notably also are saying that they are not looking to renegotiate the USMCA trade agreement that was struck between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. back in 2018. As was suggested by Howard Lutnick and by Doug Ford just yesterday. And instead, they're going to be looking for off-ramps. But where this relationship has gone, dating back to November after President Trump's election victory and Justin Trudeau flying down to have dinner with him and Lutnick at the Mar-a-Lago Club, it's really taken a posture in which we saw Trudeau and other foreign leaders try to cozy up with the president and laud him publicly and said that they were eager to work with him, to a point here in March of 2025 when you have the finance minister saying, quote, if you're racing to the basement, there's no real prize for the first person to get to the basement, making it clear that Canada will stand firm and will not cede any ground in this tariff battle to the Americans until they stand down on tariffs, saying that they have been unwarranted attacks on Canadians and that they did nothing to bring these attacks on them.
And so, Jeff, how do you explain this? I mean, you know, the USMCA, which was negotiated by Trump during his first term, and his conversations with Claudia Sheinbaum that have at least delayed for some time these tariff wars between Mexico and the United States. But why is the president so focused on Canada?
I think it's a great question, Jose, and I'm glad both you and Vaughn have mentioned the USMCA. The irony of his focus on Canada is, pardon me, as Vaughn rightly said, the fact that the president and his administration during his first term negotiated the USMCA and rewrote trade rules post-NAFTA for North America. And so the fact that he has come in and kind of essentially thrown those out the window and even suggested, apparently the Commerce Secretary suggesting that they should renegotiate that, is not really taking into account the fact that they laid the rules down or agreed on these rules the last time he was in office. To your broad question of why Canada, I think you have to put it into the lens of the politics of grievance, which basically affects President Trump's view of the world. And it's the paradigm that he applies to everything from his opponents here in the United States and the Democratic Party to his counterparts abroad. And he looks at Canada and he sees some of the tariffs that he has cited that Canada puts on U.S. goods and feels that the U.S. is being treated unfairly. And so trade talks and trade agreements aside, he's sticking to his tariffs. That's his magic word. And he's applying it to friends and foes alike.
But there's an issue, of course, of reciprocal tariffs, right? But then there's the issue of unilateral tariffs. And I don't know if this is part of which part is this of, you know?
Well, there are more reciprocal tariffs coming. The date for that, or the deadline for that, is next month. So I would say that these probably fall into the category of unilateral tariffs. But of course, they're sparking retaliation from the countries that he's applying them to, including the group of countries that is the European Union. The European Union is a group of allies, is an ally that the president has also been super critical of, just like Canada. And despite our work together, or the work between the EU and the United States together in foreign groups like the G7, and of course the big grouping of European countries with the United States and NATO, that again is set aside for the politics of grievance and economic grievance in this case that the president sees from our allies and is sparking these tariffs and this trade war.
And Neil, then of course there's the question of the ultimate impact that all of this is going to have on the U.S. economy. The president kind of changing his tune a little bit after refusing to rule out a recession this weekend. Listen to what he told reporters Tuesday outside the White House.
Do you think there will be a recession?
I don't see it at all. I think this country is going to boom.
Neil, you have exclusive reporting of a survey that shows top CEOs are becoming more wary on their growth outlook. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think what I've heard a lot of from corporate executives, from economists, is this sense that it's not just the tariffs themselves that create an issue. If it was just a one-time, raise tariffs on Canada or Mexico, companies can adjust. They can change their pricing. They can take a hit to their margins. The stock market goes down a little bit. Maybe consumer prices go up a little bit. Whatever the situation may be. What we have is not a one-time shift in tariffs. We have a kind of chaotic environment where they're on, they're off, they're big, they're small, they're on this country, that country. The rationale seems to change day to day. Is this about fentanyl? Is this about raising revenue for the U.S. government? Is this about restructuring the entire balance of trade and the structure of the global economy? And the fact that these rationales, these tactical choices seem to be made, within a single day in a kind of erratic manner is making it really hard to plan, really hard to know how you want your supply chain to work. Should you build a new factory right now? And I think until some of this settles out and enters a more stable period, it's going to be really hard for corporate decision makers to want to take that plunge on capital spending, on hiring, on all the things that create prosperity. And that's why we've seen the stock market wobble the way it has over the last couple of weeks.
So, Neil, what's more important for CEOs and small business, medium, and even large businesses when they're having to deal with the repercussions of new tariffs? Is it the rationale behind the new tariffs, or is it the fact that there are new tariffs and then new tariffs?
Well, the reason the rationale matters is because that determines whether these are permanent or temporary, right? If this is just about tactical maneuvering and getting concessions, then you expect a new tariff is going to go away after a couple of months once there's a deal. If this is about restructuring the entire global economy, if it's about raising permanent revenue for the government, then that implies these tariffs are in place for a long time. That decision, that choice could have a big implication for where you build a factory, anything like that. So that's why this matters. And, the thing to remember, the numbers we're talking about, those of us in the media covered the previous Trump administration, 2018, 2019, we were a little breathless, a lot of tariffs, and yet inflation didn't really go up. The stock market wobbled a little bit, was fine. These are an order of magnitude larger than what we saw in 2018, 2019, in terms of what is being threatened, not what's been implemented so far. So if these do go into effect, they are large enough that we'll see it. We'll see it in prices. We'll see it in growth. And that's why some of the Trump administration officials have seemed a little less willing to go out on a limb and say, oh, it'll all be fine. There'll be no pain at all.